The 100th episode 12, We Are Grounders, Part 1. Now, this is a great episode, and the first thing I'm going to mention is that we didn't see Monty at all in this episode, which means whatever he saw, or I guess technically is currently seeing, we won't get to see that until next week. So it's going to be something huge that he saw, and it has to be something good because unless they're just going to flip it and it's just depressing and they find him and he's dead, which would really suck, it's gonna be something, and he'll either come back or they'll randomly come across him, and he'll be somewhere, and it could end up being their second base during the second season. But wherever he is, it has to be something good, and it's clearly huge because he found it in the last episode. They didn't show it, and all they did was really mention Monty and that he's clearly out in the woods somewhere. So they're saving it for the season finale. So I'm really excited to see what that is, since we didn't even get to see it in this episode. Like, no mention, well, no visual reference of him, but they said his name a lot, so that already has me even more excited for whatever it is he found, because I knew it was technological based on some of the stuff he mentioned in the last episode, how it jams radio frequencies and stuff, but they didn't even show it in this episode, so that really has me hyped for the season finale, just because of that one big aspect, which they probably won't show us until the end of that episode either. But this was a great episode, and I love the fact that the last two episodes is part one and then part two, because season finales and shows in general, it's always cooler when it's one overarching story, which that's what a series is. But it's always really ramped up when they actually cut episodes into different parts. So this was a great first part, really interesting ending because Murphy actually survived. That was actually great, I think, because as much as I wanted him to go, because he was the douchey character in the beginning, and now he's the murderous character who wanted revenge in this episode, he still escaped, which means he's out there. Odds are he won't randomly die off this time either. He'll either go to the grounders, or he'll just survive out on his own again like he did before. But it was great tension for the group where he killed the guy, and of course he got busted by Jasper. He's like, oh, he was like, he wasn't breathing or something, so I tried to help. What I initially thought was Jasper would probably just like throw the can at him, but that would have of course wasted a lot of gunpowder, and it wouldn't have blown up anyway. It's not that unstable. But it was really good to see that, and Bellamy sacrificed himself, which led to a really interesting moment at the end of the episode when Jasper hugged him and he was like, you're a hell of a long way from who you used to be. I thought that was really cool, and it was also cool to see Bellamy kind of freaking out in this episode. He had two great speeches. He did those, the actor, I don't know his real name, but he did those really well, and I thought they were really well done speeches. And you could see how intense it was for him, and how the character of Bellamy was really freaking out, like, I want us all to survive. And he wasn't exactly 100% sure, at least from the way it sounded in his voice to me. He wasn't exactly 100% sure whether or not they would be able to win, but he wanted to rally the troops because that's kind of what you have to do as leader. So I love those speeches he gave, and of course at the end when Clarke countered him because she and Finn really knew what the danger was coming their way. It was just a really great moment, and it was like three separate stories in this episode, and they were all really well done. And that was really interesting to me because Clarke and Finn being off on their own, it was like its own separate story, including Lincoln. And then we had what was happening at the camp as well as the arc. But I love the camp section. It was really well done, and I'm gonna hit each section separately, but that was a great section that I really loved. And then off on the arc, which we didn't really get too much of. It wasn't, I guess it was really just two stories like any episode. We got our bits and pieces of the arc, and those were really well done too. In the very beginning, we get the information where they only have 51 hours to survive. It's pretty much all the people that are left after the woman Diana took the giant chunk of the ship, and I think she is actually dead, which I was thinking about it. Maybe she survived, maybe she didn't. They didn't bring that story back, so I think she just flat out died. No one made it on that ship. I thought it could have been a storyline where, someone sort of lived and then the grounders got to them first. And that could still be the case. They could easily bring that up in season 2 where they captured her and for some reason they let her live. I don't see that happening though. But with all that crap going down, they have 51 hours to live, and the Chancellor's just like, hey, you can eat whatever you want because we're all going to drop dead. Do whatever you want to do because we're all going to drop dead. So it was really interesting to see that. And then I knew they had to find some way to save the ark, and they did, and that it was really well done too. And he was about to drink his, he called it the baton, which I thought was interesting. But he was about to drink his scotch that he was going to save for Earth, watching this old video of his son and Clarke, and then he gets an idea like, hey, why don't we use the thrusters that keep us in the air to send us down? So that was really cool, and I love the end of the episode where he was telling everyone what his idea was, and he asked the guy like, are you smart enough to find the 5% of the arc that won't explode while we're headed down to Earth? So that'll be really good to see. Of course, it's gonna be successful. It's just gonna happen. They aren't just gonna all drop dead, and then it's like, oh, all those characters died off. They aren't gonna do that, but it'll be cool to see that actually happen. And I'm really curious as to where they're gonna end up on Earth. Of course, I would have to assume that they're gonna be close. They wouldn't just randomly be off on like a different continent or something. But I'm curious to see how close they're gonna be and who they might encounter when they hit the ground, because and this kind of transitions me into the third part of this episode. We learn more about the different factions in this episode, and we get a lot of really good information on two of the factions. One is of course the faction that we initially I guess were revealed to, and that is just the main group who goes against the 100. And what they did in this episode, they really show the hierarchy of that group. I initially thought, and I don't know, you guys can let me know if you guys thought this too, but the woman, and I believe her name was Kristen or Krista or something like that, I thought she was the leader of this faction. I thought she was the top dog. They followed her. That was just how it went. She was the leader of these people. She was, of course, one faction, which, based on some of the dialogue, you could tell that there were other factions out there. But I thought she was the leader of this faction. She took them back to their home village or wherever it was in the last episode, and that's how it was. She was the top ranking person. And in this episode, we see it's really like an army class type system where this guy comes down, and he was sent down by someone even higher up who is a commander, and I assume there has to be like an actual king and possibly king and queen, so like a whole royal family type thing if they want to really get into that. But they introduced that, and I love the guy who came in and how it was so different. He wasn't really, I guess he wasn't meshing with those people. Like, they all seemed to be really tight knit. He came down and kind of broke that apart and showed it's just as different as it is with the 100, where they have people that they don't like either, because he came in and was like, my troops are hungry, they're over by the river or something, go feed them. And he just like gestured everyone, and they just had to get up and listen to him. So I really love seeing him come in, because it showed a different dynamic to these characters, because it just seemed like they were all just bonding together, everything was fine. And then we find out she's not really the leader of this faction, and now her team has been taken over. So that was really cool. And of course, we get to see who the Reapers are, which I believe are the people who were like the mountain men in the previous episodes that Lincoln had in his book. Or if they're not, then I'd love to see who the mountain men are. But I don't know. I think the Reapers might be the mountain men. They might not be, because they're the ones who are in the mines. I don't know if that really means something, but we get to see the Reapers, who may or may not be these mountain men. And thinking about it, they might not be, actually, because in that drawing, the face was sort of like a creepy mask, and there was, I mentioned this in like my last review, or the review of that episode when they showed them, it was sort of a weird wispy type of drawing, and you could see the face, and it was just like a straight face. It just had two holes for eyes and then a mouth, and it was just that sort of really plain face that also looks kind of creepy. So the mountain men probably are different from the Reapers, who are cannibals, I have to assume, because the guy had a cup. I don't know what part of the body that was. It just had like the little studs in it, or at least it had like bumps in the skin. And they had just a carton full of people who were still alive. I don't know if they were drinking their blood, like vampires or something, or if they left them alive because it kept the meat fresh, maybe, because that actually makes a lot of sense. But the guy who was shown that where he was alive, it didn't seem like anything was missing off of him, and they didn't specify whether or not something was missing. So I'm still a little curious as to what exactly it is that they do and why they keep them alive. So we'll probably get some answers to that in season 2. But I love that part of the episode, actually getting to see one of the crazy factions that the people are afraid of. And even this big group, when they were chasing Lincoln, Finn, and Clarke, none of them would even go into the mines because they would have been taken out by the Reapers. So that was cool. And one of the big things I have to hope is, of course, that Lincoln is alive. I hope he made it, but we might get an answer next week. We might not. I hope we do, because I like his character. He was, of course, the middle ground. He appreciates the 100. He feels that what's happening to them is bad because there's really no reason for it. They landed on Earth, and then they started getting killed off by their people, so they had to fight back. So he was like the middle ground in the show, and I hope he does get to survive. But that was a great portion of the episode, and we'll probably get some more information out of his journal that we didn't get this season now that Finn has it. So we might get a little bit more information because they're going to have his journal, so they're going to look through like, hey, what's happening here and what's happening there. And it could be the same journal that Octavia had before, but I don't know, it might be a different one, who knows. But I'm hoping we get some information out of that. I definitely loved the episode. I cannot wait for the season finale. Who's going to live, who's going to die. I don't know if they're going to kill off some more important characters. Can't wait to see what happens with the arc. And of course, the thing I'm most excited for is what Monty found, because like I said, they didn't show it at all in this episode. And the things he said about how it caused interference with radios and stuff, it has to be some form of technology that we would have today, like some sort of jamming type signal. It would have to be almost like a radar or a sonar type of thing. I'm not really good with that type of advanced technology, but it's something big, and I can't wait to see that. So of course, let me know what you guys want to see in this season finale. And of course, comment below, let me know what you guys saw of this episode, your favorite parts, and your least favorite parts. And like I said, what do you guys want to see in the season finale? Or what answer are you most excited to get from this season finale? Comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.